Hello and welcome to Valley Sports Telegram presents the Sports Telegram. As always, I'm Arshavir Saryan, joined by Kenny Hodges and Kaylie Harden. It was an exciting week of football. We are getting into crunch time. We've got Thanksgiving football coming up. And shoot, without further ado, let's do this. Kenny, Kaylie, how you guys doing?
Feeling good. Feeling better that the Browns won again.
Yeah, man. Listen, week 12 is upon us. Man, it feels like the season is flying by, but the time always flies when you're having fun, and football is always fun, unless you're Joe Burrow. But we'll get into that too. But as always, we always kind of jump into our Homer segment where we kind of talk gloriously and ungloriously about our hometown teams. But I think it's only right this week. I'm going to start with Kaylie because everybody had the doom and gloom out for the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson done for the year, especially the air coming out of the balloon, coming off of a win with the Ravens. Now having to face a Steelers team that already kind of beat them. Now having to go and sort of revisit that game with Dorian Thompson Robinson, DTR as he's known in these parts, under center. And the Browns just continue to stack W's in ways when we don't think they're going to. Kaylie, how you feeling about your team after this week's performance beating the Steelers?
I think last week you asked me some egregious question like, do I think that they have a chance to win their division? And or if I thought that, they even stood a chance to get any more wins with Deshaun Watson out. And I think that this week they put questions like that to shame, because now back-to-back weeks, we've beat our two toughest opponents year in, year out. We took down the Steelers, which are always the thorn in our heel. We took down the Ravens, which I don't think anybody expected, because Lamar Jackson is that guy. And so I'm feeling really good about my Browns. I'm more confident than ever that they'll be able to, thick out the season and get the wins that they need to in order to win to the division this year. And we'll get that shoe-in spot to the playoffs. I don't know how long it's been since that was the case. So I don't know if I've ever seen it in my lifetime, or maybe it happened before I, was even a real big football fan. So that was really exciting. I think it was really competitive in the first half. I was a little nervous, but the Browns defense came through yet again. Myles Garrett put the beat down on those Steelers. So that was great to see. And I think they humbled them so much that somebody got fired over it. Again, exciting to see. Not that I smile at the demise of the Steelers, but I do. So what else can I say about my Browns besides go Brownies? Here we go, Brownies. Woo, woo.
Now, here's what I will say about these Cleveland Browns. And here's the thing, and I know people are going to go, oh my God. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it's a direct comparison. I'm saying that this is the feeling that this team gives me when I watch them. Everybody talks about like the 86 Bears are the greatest defense. That, to me, the 86 Bears are the second greatest defense. And the reason why they're the second greatest defense is because I think people over time forget about the fact that that team also had Walter Payton and Jim McMahon, and they had weapons on the outside. They had a really good offense that was comparable to how great their defense was. But the team that I think is the greatest defense of all time, because of what they were able to do despite some offensive shortcomings, was the 2001 Ravens, or the 2000 Ravens. That's my favorite defense of all time, because that was a team that ended up winning a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer at quarterback. People knowing that they weren't ever going to be able to really put points up on people in that way. But what that Ray Lewis-led defense did, with Chris McAllister on the outside and Tony Saragusa in the middle, and all, just what they did was they basically went out and told Trent Dilfer, if you score us 14 points, if you just get us 14 points, we win every week. because the other teams, we're going to beat the snot out of them because they're not scoring more than 10. If they score 10, it's a bad week for us. So as long as y'all put up 2 touchdowns, we got the rest. When I watched this Browns team, and you felt a little bit this weekend, all they asked Dorian Thompson-Robinson to do is don't turn the ball over. Don't make stupid mistakes. Don't get behind the chains, and then now we lose the turnover, the field possession, the field position battle. Just do enough to keep us on schedule. We squeezed out some points because you know what Myles Garrett and these boys are going to do. The Steelers ain't doing nothing. Even if they hit a couple big plays, we shutting it down there. We hold them to a field goal. They're not going to score on us, and that's just it. We're going to start. We're going to strangle everybody we play, and defensively, their numbers this year are ridiculous. Like,
yeah, I don't think Myles Garrett is not getting enough credit. Just to speak on just to the same point that you were just making about how like they're the Browns and their million mascots, just like we talked about last week during our random trivia section at the end. The Browns and their million mascots, the biggest one, I think the most recognizable one being the dogs, they really embody that underdog spirit, and that's how they play everything. No one ever believes that the Browns are good. No one ever believes the Browns are going to be good. Even their own fan base doesn't want to fully believe it because they don't want to get their hearts broke. We feel it's inevitable. But then when you watch this team and you even see like when people are speaking on, you know, who the best defensive player is, Nick Bosa gets a lot of love. Nick Bosa plays for a team that is guaranteed to win games. I mean, everyone expects the 49ers to do well. But I think with someone like Myles Garrett, who's got I think more sacks than games he's played. Yeah. So when you have someone like Myles Garrett literally winning football games for an entire city that has really put this franchise on his back this season, as a defensive player with all of the injuries that we've had on the offensive side, that is more impressive to me than a team or a defensive player performing well on a team that's expected to win regardless. Because it's overcoming the odds, it's overcoming all the doubt that you see from anybody who's ever watched the Browns play. And I will say also another really tight win, because just to like what you were just saying, how they told DTR, just stay in the game, just keep it neck and neck and let the defense do the rest. This is the second game in a row that we have won by a field goal in the toughest division in the league. So hats off to the Browns.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they've just been a team that has continued to get better and better defensively. They continue to strangle teams. They don't give up first downs. I think they've only given up 66 passing first downs all year long. That's ridiculous. You can't throw on them. You can't run on them. It's insane. But moving on to another team that has kind of got their mojo going a little bit, and that is Arshavir, your Dallas Cowboys. How are you feeling about the Dallas Cowboys coming out of this week, and how do you feel about the team kind of going forward, heading into a big matchup on Thanksgiving Day?
1 down, 2 to go. That's legitimately how I feel. I said they needed to win their next 3 before Philadelphia comes into the Arlington, and that's 1, right? It was very convincing. It was exactly what you need it to be when you're beating up on a team that is quite honestly not doing very well. So yeah, 1 down, right? And this week they got the Commanders. It's not a team to really overlook, but it's a team they should win. They need to take that win. And then next week they get the Seahawks. Definitely not a gimme game. But again, these are games they need to win before Philly. Do I feel like it's clicking? I feel like it's coming together. But again, you need to ask me next week. Same question, but not next week when we record. Next Friday, after they play the Seahawks. Then I will have my true answer of how they're doing as far as coming together at this point in the season, because that game should be a test, a real test. Not overlooking the Commanders, but if we're talking talent to talent, This is a game that they should win, a game they should win pretty handily. So that Seahawks game is the one that I'm kind of looking at. Okay, this is a barometer game before Philly.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when you look at the next two games, they're obviously going to be favored in both. Obviously, they're the better team than the Commanders. People are going to expect them to kind of handle business on Thanksgiving Day. And now with the sort of developments that are kind of coming out of Seattle, where it's a little bit up in the air about Geno Smith's status with the arm injury that he sustained in that Rams game. Yeah, he came back and he finished the game and almost pulled out the victory. But we got to kind of monitor that over the next course of the next couple of weeks. And if he's not at 100% going against that Dallas defense, that could be issues for Seattle in that game. But we'll see. But moving on to another team, they were playing better as of late after they made the change. The Las Vegas Raiders, almost called them the Oakland Raiders because it's still a bad habit you got to kind of get out of. The Las Vegas Raiders went to Miami. They put up a good fight, came up a little short in the end. How are you feeling about this team? And more importantly, have you liked what you've seen out of Antonio Pierce and how this team has played since he's kind of taken over under the interim title?
I love what I've seen out of this team. Now, was it challenging? Yes. Is this a game I expected them to win? No. Now, that being said, what I expected is what I got. I got that defense hungry. I got the defense fighting, defense forcing turnovers. Mind you, this is a defense that had almost no turnovers. Before Pierce took over. And now they've gotten in back-to-back weeks. And this is a Miami offense that is explosive. Mind you, how many points they dropped on Denver early in the season. They're explosive. The only issue that I have is not something that's going to be corrected this season, and I'm okay with it. Right? Aiden O'Connell is a rookie. Not only is he a rookie, he was a third-string quarterback. He had almost zero snaps with the first team until Pierce took over. So they don't have an offensive game plan for him. And the thing that I saw, I was reading it and it clicked because it was interesting watching and trying to dissect what I was seeing. And then I read it afterwards. When they got out of their script is when they got in trouble. Well, teams only script what? Their first 3, 4, 5 series in the quarter and a half. I mean, the first quarter and the third quarter. They don't script the entire half because you can't script it. You just kind of script the beginning to try to get you into a certain flow. It was when they had to go out of the script that it was some issues because they didn't have a playbook deep enough for O'Connell. Now, it's not necessarily anybody's fault. It's just a reality. And they tried to protect him. Did he throw an interception at the end of the game that could have tied the game? Yes. Is that something I necessarily hold against them right now? No. But yeah, I'm happy with where they are. If this defense shows up and they play a very, very similar game to what they did against the Dolphins in their 2 Kansas City games, I'll be happy. And hell, they might even steal a Kansas City game because the Chiefs look mortal right now.
Yeah, I agree. I like what I'm seeing out of the Raiders. But we're done with all the positive talk. We're down to my team, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Jets. We know what the Jets are. Listen, Tim Boyle, Susan Boyle, it doesn't matter who you put back there at quarterback this week. If that O-line can't block, which they can't, we know they can't, this team is just going to be dead in the water offensively. Like, we can't move the ball. We can't score the ball. We can't. And it's a damn shame because this defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. But you saw this week against Buffalo when you going up against a really good team and you know that you're in a gunfight with a pea shooter. There's nothing you're going to be able to do. and it kind of wears on the defense, and they started to kind of give up plays, and that game just kind of went in the tank. Listen, it's probably going to get ugly this week against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are actually starting to look like, aside from forget about the 70-point game. Yeah, we know that was they looked great offensively that day, but in terms of the balance that we thought the Dolphins could be, now with Jalen Ramsey being back healthy for them, as we kind of saw in that Raiders game, their defense is now starting to look like they're the true counterparts to what they can do offensively. And I think this thing might get ugly. This Black Friday game might be of Black Friday, a funeral and a moratorium on our season. So that's all I got to say about the Jets. We're going to move right along into the headlines. The first couple of headlines we're going to go through, they'll be more rapid fire because they're big, they're worthy of being in the headlines, but there's not as much to talk about there. And the other two I'll save for us to unpack a little bit. But we're going to start right at the top. We saw last Thursday night in that Bengals-Ravens game, the Ravens picked up the win over the Bengals, but the biggest news to come out of that game is Joe Burrow is lost for the season with a wrist injury. Now, he's going to have surgery on the wrist, and he should be ready in time for training camp, but he is indeed done for the year. The question I have for you guys, are the Bengals done at 5-5 in terms of their chances of making the playoffs in a stout AFC? Kaylie, we'll start with you. You think the Bengals are they cooked?
The Bengals, it sucks when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, and it sucks to see him injured after, I think hopes that they were really going to put on this season, even despite how competitive the division is. And so it is sad, but they gone. It's just too competitive. It's way too competitive out here. The Lamar Jackson and Odell Beckham did that to them. I think that really demonstrated, even though the Ravens have had some point this season where it's like, with the talent that you guys have, what are you doing? I think that this game was a real temperature check as to show where these teams really do stand against each other. And compared to, I don't think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs either. Maybe a wild card. But I would say that that's going to go to the Ravens because the Browns are going to be the shoo-in. So, yeah, I think it's time. I think it's time that the Bengals chalk it up. I hope that Joe Burrow gets healthy, though, and he's ready and cracking to go for next season because I like playing the Bengals, and I don't mind losing to them.
Actually, Arshavir, what do you think? You think their goose is cooked, or you think there's still a chance they can get in?
I'm still trying to digest a Cincinnati girl. My bad. The Cleveland girl saying she doesn't mind losing to Cincinnati.
I don't mind losing to Joe Burrow. I should have clarified. And that's because this Cleveland girl is also an Athens girl. Shout out to Athens, Ohio.
Okay. All right.
Go the Bobcats. The Bobcats do love the Bengals.
Okay. And it's I get the rivalry love there, right? And more I'm the same, right? When it comes to Mahomes, I can't hate the man. I can't hate the man. I'm supposed to, but I can't. So let's bring it back. I think Cincinnati is cooked, and it'll show in my picks later when we do those.
Cooked like jerky. Get them out of here.
And a quick note, now ask you guys a rapid fire question before we move on to the next headline. The Ravens also didn't come out of this game unscathed. Yes, the loss of Joe Burrow was the huge loss, but Lamar Jackson actually did lose his favorite target for the season, or his favorite target since he's been in Baltimore. His tight end Mark Andrews went down with an ankle injury, has surgery. He's done for the year. Is that a big deal? Was that something that the Ravens can withstand with some of the weapons they have? Or do you think this is going to hurt Lamar Jackson? Kaylie, you go.
I think as long as they're able to lean on Odell Beckham and they still have the offensive talent necessary to continue to have a great season. It is unfortunate, but none of our favorite teams have gone without the injury of a critical component this season. So if the Ravens are going to prove how good they are, they had to overcome that hurdle as well. So I don't think that it's definitely not as detrimental to the Ravens as it is for the Bengals to lose Joe Burrow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Kenny, before you even kick it to me, sorry. Because what they have is they've now had practice time to kind of fill in for that spot. And it's not like whoever steps in is going to fill his shoes completely, but they've had a little bit of prep time. They're going to have some prep time to kind of see if there's a tight end who can pick up a little bit. They still have plenty of weapons on offense. Even if his safety valve and favorite weapon is out for the year, I think they're still going to be okay, at least in the regular season.
Yeah, I think they might be okay. But if there's any place that is going to hurt them, is that Mark Andrews is one of the underrated blocking tight ends in the NFL. We talk about George Kittle, but he is a very vital piece of Baltimore's run game as well as what he does in the passing game. So, like I said, time will tell. We'll see. I think the Ravens – what's been great about the Ravens is this is the first year under Lamar being in. As you can see that they actually went out of their way to get him multiple weapons to sort of withstand this. So time will tell. But moving on to another team in the AFC worth talking about, the Houston Texans continue to stay red hot behind their rookie hotshot quarterback CJ Stroud. Got a little hairy. He took a big shot in that game against the Cardinals, but he bounced right back and threw a touchdown pass right after he got dinged up a little bit, kind of just reinforcing that this guy is a dude. My question to you two, obviously now with the Texans being 6-4, we see somehow the AFC is starting to play out. They are absolutely now sort of entrenched in that playoff picture. It's not as for certain with so many good teams in the AFC, but they are absolutely one of those teams in the mix. A question, we'll start with you, Arshavir. What is the ceiling for the Houston Texans? I know you're on record as thinking that they're going to take this division, but how far do you think this team can actually go in a tough AFC?
I mean, I'm talking they could be 13-4, 12-5, something like that. And I could see them, in that AFC title game and losing in the Super Bowl. To me, that's their ceiling. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl this year, but their ceiling would be AFC champs.
That's bold. Okay, Kaylie, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not giving them. I'm not giving them that much credit. I'm not giving them that much credit at all. I think that for as young as their talent is, they have been extremely impressive, and it has been cool to see CJ Stroud do his thing this year, and really just really prove his value, and then some. So in that regard, I'll give them their credit. I say they'll make the playoffs, but I mean, I give them like 1, maybe 2 games.
Yeah. Now listen,
I'm sorry. I got to throw just a piece of defense on that. Is looking at how surprisingly not dominating the rest of the AFC is. Leads me to that, because you look, the Chiefs aren't dominating, the Ravens aren't dominating. There is no team head and shoulders above the rest of the AFC currently, and I think CJ Stroud could pull off that kind of quote unquote miracle run as a rookie. So I just have to do that.
Okay, but here's my pushback, and here's where I'm going to ask you: are you being prisoner of the moment? I presented you with a stat a few weeks ago about the Detroit Lions being 13-3 in their last 16 games, and you told me I need to see more. You literally just sat here and said you could see this team going undefeated the rest of the way because they're 6-4. In order for them to go 13-4, that means they don't lose another game as they head towards the playoffs. With a rookie quarterback, with rookies sort of being their impact players, first-year, second-year players, and guys who've never done it, do you really think that the ceiling could be that high for a team that when they get to the playoffs and they see Pat Mahomes, that'll be the first time a lot of these guys have ever been in that sort of spot? The only guy on that team that really has real playoff experience is like their running back, Devin Singletary, because he was in Buffalo the last few years. Do you that's where I kind of question, are you hot-shotting and being a prisoner of the moment a little bit?
The only reason I would say no, is I went ahead, I looked at the remaining schedule, I looked at what they have left. 13-4 is, I can see it. 12-5, I think, is definitely a possibility. But like I said, I don't see any other teams in the AFC currently really just out there dominating. The Browns are doing amazing, right? But they're on also a rookie quarterback. So that would be an interesting matchup. Depending on how they finish in the standings, that would lead to their seeding. Now, if this team was to go, undefeated the rest of the way, they would be a top seed in the AFC, which would then lead them to potentially avoid a couple of these more challenging matchups. So it's in the realm of possibility. Do I need to see more to be completely convinced? Yes, because the question was ceiling, and that's what I think is the ceiling.
Okay, we will definitely revisit that in the next few weeks. They do have some tough ones coming up. They got to go on the road to the Jets, who can't score, but they will beat you up. They got to play Cleveland. Obviously, they got a tough one with Jacksonville. So that ceiling and that belief is going to be tested very soon. Now, speaking of belief or disbelief or lack of belief or whatever sort of belief you want to throw on to this situation, Chargers go on the road to Green Bay. They lose another close game. They can't finish in the end, 23-20 to the Green Bay Packers. Again, we've had this conversation a few times. I think we've all landed in the idea that we could see the Chargers moving in a different direction next season. But based on what we've sort of seen with this team now and the post-game comments, even with Brandon Staley, where you can clearly see the pressure getting to him, do you guys think that he survives this season?
I'm going to jump in. We've been asking this question now for a few weeks, and I think the first time we answered it, I said I don't see him being retained at the end of the season. And we're at a point now where any week after a loss, he could get fired. That's literally where they stand. If he doesn't get fired in season, I think he is cooked the minute the season ends for the Chargers. And I don't think there's anything there. There's so much talent on this team that I don't think they blow it up. I think you blow up the staff and try to find someone to come in and work with these guys. I mean, look, come on. It was a week or two ago we named all the studs on this roster and said it's inexcusable for this team to be this bad. So, yeah, it's all coaching. They got to blow up that coaching staff.
And to say that the team is bad is even a little harsh, because when you do look at their losses, all of these losses, close games, it's not for lack of talent or lack of ability to win the game. It's the play calling, it's the way the team is being managed. So I agree 100%. They're gonna blow. If they don't start doing it now before the season's up, they're definitely doing it at the end of the season. It's gonna be a complete overhaul of that staff.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's kind of hard because one of the things that's difficult is because you're kind of between the rock and the hard place, right? On one hand, you would look at it and be like, okay, we spent a lot of money. We've got a lot of talent amassed. It's not working. Maybe the chemistry is not right. Maybe you look at moving a couple of these guys, maybe getting back some draft capital, maybe just kind of taking some money off your books, because you do have to worry about Justin Herbert's contract now being an albatross, because you will, over the course of the next couple of years, have to make decisions on guys like Austin Eckler, who clearly wants to get paid and will not come back if he doesn't get the number he wants, right? So maybe is that. But again, like to Kaylie's point, this is not a team that gets blown out on a week-to-week basis. This is a team where the frustration is the difference between being where they are in the standings right now and not being 7-2 is because this team never seems to be able to finish the deal. And at some point, if you can't finish the deal, that first person that needs to land on is the head coach. And he And let me just also say this. Anybody within the sound of my voice, if you are a coach or anything in life, take it from a man who's been married for a lot of years now. The way that you accept responsibility is just saying it's on me. You don't accept responsibility by saying, yeah, it's on me, but Justin Herbert needs to play better. Yeah, it's on me, but guys got to make plays on defense. That is the equivalent of me looking at my wife and saying, yeah, I didn't take out the trash, but you know what? You made some of it. That's never going to get you anywhere. That's never going to get you anywhere. That's not leadership. That's not how you handle anything. That's not how you – there's no way the guys in that locker room didn't see the things that he said in that post-game press conference and didn't come away feeling like he threw them under the bus. You can't do it because at the end of the day, you are the face of that thing. If the team's not winning, yeah, it's going to fall on Justin Herbert. Yeah, it's going to fall on the stars, this, that, and the third, but you're the coach. So you can't sit in the press conference and be like, yeah, it's on me. I take responsibility, but guys need to play better. That's not taking responsibility if you didn't turn around and then point fingers at people. That's the mark of a man whose seat is burning ass hot and he's about to get scorched and get dumped. But moving on.
If he's real quick though, but if he's taking responsibility, right? The responsibility is I put them in a position where they didn't have an opportunity to get better. I put them behind the 8 ball. So what he's actually doing is he's not even taking responsibility. He's pretending to take responsibility and deflecting onto his players. And throwing them under the bus. If you know what this reminds me of? He who shall not be named that was fired a few weeks ago in Vegas.
Oh, what a clown. What a clown that guy is. But moving along, in the interest of time, we'll move along to our final headline. The Philadelphia Eagles go on the road on a rainy Monday night, beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Obviously, we've all seen the highlights. MVS drops a ball that should have been a touchdown. Travis Kelce had a big fumble inside the 10. Really, the Chiefs, realistically, the Chiefs should have walked away with this win. But kudos to the Eagles. They got down. They were down 17-7.5. They did what they needed to do to take the lead, held on at the end. So the first question I have coming out of this game, if you look at the Eagles at 9-1, yes, we know the one blip on their blemishes. They lost that game to the Jets. Okay, fine. You can make the argument they should have lost this game. They could be 8-2. But they've still been the strongest team in the NFC. But if I were to ask you to take your own money, take your mortgage, are you betting on the Eagles? And this is a silly question for one of the men on the panel, one of the members on the panel, because I kind of know where you're going, but I'm asking for objectivity here. If you had to put your mortgage on the Eagles or the field in the NFC, who are you taking? Are you taking the Eagles or are you taking the field? We'll start with Kaylie because I'm giving you a minute to kind of work on your objectivity there. Kaylie, you taking the Eagles or you taking the field?
Go Birds, baby. I'm taking the Eagles. I love to see Philadelphia win. I want to see them burn the city to the ground when they go to the Super Bowl this year again. I'm ready for it.
Yes.
And I will say, as someone who has not done exceptionally well in our little bets that we place at the end of every single one of these episodes, I'm not going to say that that's a good decision, but I would do it. I would make that bet.
Kaylie said, go ahead and grease the light poles because she thinks they'll win it again. All right, Arshavir, you taking the Eagles or you taking the field?
I got it right here. And it's funny because you're gonna scoff at me because you're expecting it. I'm taking the Eagles, but the caveat is if the Cowboys don't wake up. Because if the Cowboys wake up and they finish the season as a team they're supposed to be, means they're gonna probably beat the Eagles in 3 weeks. I'm not getting there yet. I'm going to keep it slow. I've been pumping the brakes all season so far on them. I mean, realistically, it's the Eagles until someone takes it from them. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. And the reason why I pose this question is because, obviously, when you look at it, it would be easy to be like, oh, look at some of the other teams in NFC. That's sort of a broad thing. But again, when you look at the idea that they would only probably have to go through San Francisco and Detroit, who are the two teams that as of right now have sort of played the role of the second and third best teams in the NFC. So if things sort of play out the way it looks like they're going to play out, assuming the Eagles end up with the 1, Detroit and San Francisco end up 2 and 3, they're going to play each other in the divisional. So if you're Philly, you only have to deal with one of those teams potentially coming to a cold, rainy Philly where the weather is always terrible that time of year to get to the Super Bowl, right? Yes, the landmine could be you probably might see Dallas in the divisional round yourselves, as I would expect them, even though they probably have to go on the road. But if they got to go to Tampa or if they got to go to New Orleans, you'd expect them to win that game in the divisional round or in the wild card round. So that's where it gets a little tricky. But because some of these teams would have to knock each other off, I'll also go with Jay Hurts getting back to the Super Bowl. On that note, we're going to move into our pick segment. It was a great week for each of us. No one with a perfect week, but strong weeks.
Wait. I have to cut you off. I have to, because I've got to say something. We had it posed in the docket and we didn't really touch on it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The Kansas City offense. And I have to say this. You asked about the Kansas City offense. Do they need another wide receiver? The answer is yes. But first, as somebody who had MVS on his team fantasy-wise a few years ago and trusted him and watched him, this is not the guy you want to be throwing the ball to with the game on the line. This man is freaking Nelson Aguilar 2.0. He drops balls like crazy. And the ball was in his hands in the breadbasket. That's a touchdown. So, yeah, they missed Tyreek Hill. And that's another reason why I'm not really sold on this offense moving forward.
Yeah. So I'll ask Kaylie, do the Chiefs regret not signing Tyreek Hill? Now, granted, had they signed him, that probably means they would have lost Chris Jones, because there's no way with what Tyreek Hill wanted, they would have been able to pay both of those guys monster contracts. So if based on what we've seen so far, if they had a time machine that could go back and make the decision again and lose one of those guys, do you think they would have said, never mind, we looked into the future, MVS drops the touchdown, no, Cheetah stays here, Chris Jones, you go on about your business? Do you think they would have done it over?
Hindsight's always 2020. I think absolutely. Going back to the lackluster, not that they haven't done well, but this isn't the Chiefs team that I think anyone has been used to seeing. And so I think, yeah, hindsight's 2020. If they could go back and do it over again, I say they do it differently.
Yeah, and because of that and what we've seen with their offense, if that question I posed about the Eagles, if I flipped it and said with the Chiefs, I'd take the field over the Chiefs, because I just don't trust with teams like Baltimore and Buffalo and Cleveland, for that matter, in the playoffs. Their game plan would be to keep Pat Mahomes on the sideline and grind that clock, right? So now we've seen Pat Mahomes in situations where he may get less opportunities to beat you, and now he's got to rely on some of these guys, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done.
There were 4 drops at the end of that game. And you could say only 3 were consequential because Kelsey made up for his drop, right, with that first down catch. But still, those were drops, pure and simple drops. And when your wideouts and tight ends are dropping the ball, you're not going to win games, especially against a tough defense, which the Eagles are. And there's numerous tough defenses in the AFC. So if these receivers can't start catching the damn football, the Chiefs are not going to do much.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll move from our headlines into our weekly picks. It was a good week in week 11 for each of us. We all went 3-1. As in the current standings, I am still in first place at 40 points, 30-10 overall. Kaylie sits in second place with 32 points, 27-13 overall. Arshavir right on her heels at 31 points, 24-16 overall. Week 12 offers a lot of interesting matchups, obviously Thanksgiving games and such. I'll start out this week. I'll be brief with my picks. I'm going to go Lions over Packers. I just think the Lions are rolling. They're the team to beat in the NFC North. I think they know they have it all to play for. And now, like we talked about with the way the Niners have looked, with the Eagles have looked, they've got an outside chance of maybe being able to steal that top seed in the NFC if they can handle business. I think that building will be as hyped as it's been in a long time for Thanksgiving Day. I think they're going to ride that momentum and beat up Jordan Love. I'm going to go Lions over Packers. Now, this one was a tough one. One of my co-hosts is not going to like this one. But I'm going to go Broncos over Browns. And yes, that while that might sound crazy, if you look at what the Denver Broncos have done, winning 4 of their last 5, they were 1-5. They might have back to 5-5. Russ is starting to look the way that Sean Payton has finally beaten this man in submission, and he's playing the way that he wants him to play. Cortland Sutton looks like a dog in the AFC. I think the Browns are kind of due. I think it's going to be rocky. They're still going to be good, but with DTR being a rookie, this could be one of those weeks going on the road to Denver. It's going to be loud. It's hard to play when people actually care about the Broncos and going into that building. I think it could be tough. I think the Broncos eke that one out. I'm going to go Jags over Texans. If I'm going to stay on this Jaguars bandwagon, this is the week they have to show who they are, who I think that they can be. This Texans team is red hot. CJ Stroud is coming in with every intention of kind of wrestling that division away. But I think the Jags are going to put together a good effort. They're going to have to. And I think Trevor Lawrence will outduel CJ Stroud, and the Jaguars will win that one. And my lock of the week is the Black Friday special. I'm going with the Dolphins over my Jets. Listen, like I said, Tim Boyle or Susan Boyle, doesn't matter. You put anybody back there in front of this D-line, in front of this O-line, and it's going to be a long day. I don't think the Jets have any shot in hell to be able to score with the Dolphins. Even if our defense plays well, we're not going to be able to keep Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane and all the weapons they have off the board. The Dolphins will be able to score enough to beat a tough Jets defense because our offense won't do anything. So this feels like a safe lock to me. So Lions over Packers, Broncos over Browns, Jags over Texans, and my lock of the week, the Dolphins over the Jets. Who wants to go?
All right. Well, similar. Now, I've got Baltimore over the Chargers because that's a dumpster fire, and they can't do anything. I got the Lions over the Packers. I think that's going to be an exciting time in Detroit when you're talking about winning on Thanksgiving. I've got Pittsburgh over Cincinnati because that defense, I think, is going to eat the Bengals alive. They don't have Joe Burrow. And then my lock is the Dolphins over the Jets. Now, like you said, I think Miami's offense has enough. And you just have to look at what they did this past weekend. The Vegas D made life hard on them. So the offense couldn't do anything. And they got just enough offense to pull out the win. So that's the lock, Miami over Jets.
All right, Kaylie, you're up. What do you got this week?
All right, I agree with you guys on the Lions. I'm going to take the Lions for sure. I also really like the Dolphins, but they're not going to be my lock. Ravens are going to eat it up this week. And then my lock of the week, which is the only bird that what's it called? Swoops? Is that what we figured out last week? The only bird in the league that swoops. And then my lock of the week is going to be the Eagles.
Okay. All right. So, as usual, good luck to you all. And as we wrap up this week, like I said, we try to change it up every week. I came up with a quick scenario because it's something that's kind of crossed my mind. It was a conversation I had with some friends of mine over something as trivial as relocation in Madden, right? So relocation is a thing that the NFL has kind of talked about wanting and sort of exploring. We've seen the success of their international series games with the London games, the Germany game, the game they play, the games they played in Mexico City. We saw that pre-pandemic, Green Bay would always play preseason game and Buffalo would play preseason games up in Canada. So if I gave you guys Shad Khan's money, which is just wipe your behind with $100 bills type of money, and I said, as Roger Goodell, you can put a team anywhere you want, what city would you pick and why? Kaylie, we'll start with you.
We go to Honolulu, baby. These teams don't want to go to London and Germany to go play football. They want to go lay out on the beach when they're done after they take that L. I'm putting a franchise in Honolulu.
Interesting. All right, Arshavir, you up. If you could put a franchise anywhere, where would you put one?
Man, this is a toughie. Because the international series is all over the place. And you know what's funny is it makes sense for the NFL to be the first league to be international since they only play once a week. Travel's easier in terms of planning and all that. Yeah, I'd have to say London.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I would say there's two places that make a lot of sense. London is the obvious one that makes a lot of sense because if you put a team in London, then the NFL owns Sunday from sunup to sundown because then you'll be guaranteed whenever the London Knights are playing at home, you got a game that's starting at 10 a.m. You got a game and you got games that don't end until 11 o'clock at night. They will own it. They would completely own the entire day. The other place that makes a lot of sense just because of the fact that whenever they play a game there, they put 100,000 seats in that stadium in Mexico City is Mexico City. We know that the Raiders and the Niners have huge fan bases down there. We know the Cowboys have a huge fan base down there. I think that would be an easy sell to people to put a team in Mexico City, but London just makes the most sense. So I agree. I would put one in London. All right, guys, that wraps up another week of VST Presents the Sports Telegram. It's been fun as usual. Make sure you guys have a great Thanksgiving. If you're traveling, travel safely. If you're eating turkey, be careful. It'll put you to sleep. The tryptophan is real. And for Arshavir Saryan, Kaylie Harden, and your boy Kenny Hodges, have a happy holiday. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.